All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's Creative Convos. This is brought to you by LPL Financial and Lisk. Obviously, I am not the usual Seifu or Tim. They're actually at an awards night today, so I am filling in. I'm Karine Olarte. I was in a previous cohort for CEI, and I'll be basically just helping Rita with kind of managing everyone's questions today. And of course, if you have any questions as we go through today's Creative Convo, feel free to put them in the chat. And then also, there will be certain sections of the presentation where you will be asked, like, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or go ahead and go off mute. And yeah, if there's anything else, am I missing anything else? I think we're good.
Oh,
All right.
who presented this evening?
Mhm.
Oh, the
Y-
sponsors for the evening.
Yeah. LPL Financial and List. So they're the ones who are supporting Creative Combos and making it possible, which is awesome. But yeah, so without further ado, here is Rita and her amazing workshop that is in store for everybody.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining early so that we can make sure everything is set up and ready to go. I really appreciate your time. So thank you for that. And welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. As you can see, I keep smiling. I mean it from my heart. I'm so happy also to see that you're here and that you're prioritizing yourself and your art, which is very important because so often we're busy with the doing, right? And so we don't really create the space or the time to step back and to look at what we've accomplished, to think about where we are and where we want to go. So again, thank you for prioritizing yourself and joining me this evening. So we're going to be discussing your brand story and what exactly does it mean and how do you identify it? Why is it important? And we'll be spending the time during this time together to actually do some of that uncovering. Okay, so it's not something that you have to take away to do, which I know can be a challenge. So we're going to utilize some of this time together to do that. So, again, I'm Rita Thomas. I am the founder and CEO of 110 North, which is a creative and marketing agency located here in Charlotte. A little bit about our agency, if this will allow me to move forward, is that we pride ourselves and we say all the time that we are standing at the intersection of strategy and authentic storytelling. So clearly, stories are our jam. So again, that's why I'm so passionate about working with you to uncover yours. Some of the work that we've done locally, you may be familiar with. We have our most recent campaign, which is Our Community, Our Safety, Our Mission. It launched on Monday, so it's nearly a week old. It's a 360 campaign, and that means that it can be seen across various platforms. So billboard placements, bus and train stations, as well as the vehicles themselves. And we also have digital assets too. Very excited about this project and being selected to work with the county on this important work. It focuses on gun violence awareness and prevention. We also have worked with the Office of Violence Prevention on a campaign titled Not Another, and we really took a step back again to think about the gun violence in our community and what were some of those common stories and experiences that we would be able to weave throughout that work. And so you'll see here we had not another missed birthday, but there were a number of messages. And then last but not least, another campaign that is a recent campaign for us focused on HIV awareness and prevention, letting our community members know that there are free at-home HIV tests available to them. So again, when I say that we're passionate about stories, we're passionate about humanizing data and focusing on community, this is a reflection of that. So the work that I just showed you, the Our Community campaign, we worked with local local community members that are really focused on I'm going to say primarily because it's a variety, they have a variety of focuses, but they all focus on serving the community and removing some barriers to access, whether it's for food and food insecurity that people may be challenged by, or child care. So they all have a variety of focuses, and I'm saying focuses because no one person does one thing, which was also very impressive. But we took the time to identify them, to cast them, to invite them to take part in the photo shoot and thus the campaign. So we transform data into powerful narratives, and this is a part of us doing that. And that's the how we do that. And we're also focused on uplifting communities. So we're strategic about who we partner with and who our audience is as an agency and who our clients are speaking to. And that's important. You'll see how all of this is woven together as we move through. So I mentioned this earlier when I was saying I'm proud of you. I'm excited that you've carved out the time to do this work. Solange is an artist whom I absolutely admire. She has been able to bring her art to life in a very like in various ways. She doesn't allow herself to be limited, which is very impressive because so often we can be afraid to do something that's a little different and we feel like we have to stay in our lane. And she has said in many interviews that one of the reasons she's able to do that is because she creates space to think, right? And to do some of that, what I would call soul searching. Some other people would say self-exploration. And that is what we'll continue to do this evening. So the importance of story, I feel like it kind of is becoming more of a buzzword when people are like, "Oh, what's your story? Tell your story." And I'm like, "Okay, why? What's the purpose of it? Like, what's the purpose? How much do I have to share? I don't want to overexpose myself." People have different levels, like comfort levels with sharing things about themselves, and I understand that. But I'm going to speak to why it is so important and what shifts we've seen. I'm going to say in the market, but in the community, within the world, as it relates to storytelling and impact. So we are all very familiar with social media and all of the content that we're seeing. And at one point, the majority of the content was very polished, right? Like you would see a lot of graphics that look like they took people a lot of time to design. Occasionally, you would see a photo of someone's family member or a friend, but we didn't really know the backstory, right? And people are sharing that now, and that is becoming more of a cultural norm. So we have to also remember that that is what people are consuming, and that is setting a new standard of access. Now, does that mean you have to tell everyone everything about you? No, but it does mean they may want to know the why behind the work that you're doing at the very least. So yes, we see your work and it's beautiful, but why are you doing this? Like, why do you care? Why are you inspired by it? So I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean that you have to share all of your personal details, but it does mean that at the very least, your audience wants to connect with you on an emotive or an emotional level. And that could be excitement. Oftentimes, when we talk to people about sharing their emotions, they're like, "Oh, does it have to be when I'm frustrated or maybe I didn't land an opportunity?" And it's like, no, you can share your joy. You can share your joy with your audience. You can say, "I've been working on this piece for 3 months and I'm finally done," right? And give them an opportunity to celebrate with you and to have a little sneak peek behind the scenes to understand why you may be charging what you're charging for that piece as well, right? And so you're not saying it like, "Oh, well, because I spent 3 months, this piece is $1,500." But oftentimes audiences will put that together. They're like, "Oh, well, I remember she said it, or he, or they said that it took 3 months to do that work. And now they're selling it for 1,500. It all makes sense to me." So it also helps in some cases with your pricing strategy. And when people know your story, it builds trust. And so we'll use that same example about the price point of a piece of art that you've developed and people understanding the why behind the asking price, right? So they trust you. They're like, oh, well, you know what? If they're saying that this is what it's worth, it must be worth it. I would like to know, because I know we covered a lot. I'm going to pause for a quick second. Corrine, I know that this isn't a place where we originally planned to pause, but I know that I just covered a lot, and I would love to know if anyone has any questions. And you can drop them in the chat or raise your hand. No? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think we're good.
we'll keep moving forward. So we developed, my team and I, this framework that we feel very confident will help to guide us through quickly identifying your brand story. Sometimes workshops like this one can take a full day. In other instances, a week or more. And so we developed the North Framework. And what this is it's going to help walk you through the building blocks of your brand story. So we're going to start with your North Star, which is your guiding force. Why do you create? Some people would call this your origin story, or when you identified your purpose or your passion. And then we will then go on and move on to your outlook. How does your story feel or sound, or how does it move? Some people would call this like your vibe. Like, what's the vibe of your work and what influenced it? And then usually there's a rift because we all experience challenges. So this would be the tension or the challenge that you faced or are currently facing. And then there's the turning point. This is a pivotal moment that may have redefined your path or made it abundantly clear. And then your heartline. So some people would call these your customers or your audience. Who are you trying to reach and what matters to them? I love frameworks, but I've also been in workshops and spaces where there is a framework or there are tools that are shared. And you're like, but what does this really look like when it's applied? So I completed this myself so that you can learn more about me and my story, but also see it in action. Okay, and there should also be a link if you haven't already downloaded the worksheet. There should be a link in the chat where you can go and download the worksheet, which is what we'll be walking through next. So for me, my North Star and my love for storytelling started really, really early in my life. My father is Ghanaian, and he would watch the news and repeat after the reporters, whatever it was that they were saying. So he would do the newscast, and he would do the forecast, and he would repeat these stories that were very dramatic. I'm like 3 years old, and I'm like, oh, really? Listening listening to him repeat these stories. It was like these stories echoed in our home. So I just thought it was fascinating, the power of storytelling to keep people informed, but also it was empowering my dad and making him even more confident and comfortable. I thought that was amazing. And my mother, she had 11 siblings. And she was the go-to person. So I don't know how many of you remember landlines, but the phone would ring and she would pick it up and she could be on the phone for like an hour straight, swapping stories with her siblings and encouraging them or challenging them because she could be a little spicy too. But I thought that was just fascinating. Like, how could people talk so long? And what topic are you on next? And they would commingle topics. And I thought it was amazing. And then for my outlook, I would say that my tone for my brand is grounded, it's compassionate, it's clear, and it's rooted in truth. A rift and something that I have experienced and I still experience as a agency owner, a space where less than 3% of agency owners are women alone, and then they don't have numbers for the number of Black women that own agencies. So oftentimes I'm the only Black woman in a lot of the spaces that I'm in. And then a turning point and a turning point for me, which made me realize I could make a living with storytelling, was I had the opportunity to work for Oprah Winfrey. which was a dream job of mine. I was a producer there and learned so much about the importance of storytelling and being inclusive in your storytelling. And then my heart line, I love people. So I'm very intentional about partnering with audiences, in my case, people that partner with our agency that are also focused on community and positive community impact and not just marketing. Okay. I hope that was helpful so that you could see the framework applied. And then we'll transition to the worksheet unless there are some questions.
We do have a question in the chat. The question is, how can you determine if a framework is effective?
Oh, that's a great question. For me and in my experience, I would say the what you're able to come out of the other side with. And with this framework, we're going to be able to create a 2 sentence summary of your brand story. And I think that's a great question because sometimes you'll have a framework and you'll have a lot of answers to questions and prompts, but you're like, how does all of this come together? So for me, it's being able to walk away with something that empowers you to move forward differently. I hope that helps. That's a good question.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the framework. So this is where we get to take a moment to pause, to breathe, and to do the work. This is not intended to be something that has to be perfect. Okay, so I want you to really give yourself the freedom and the grace to write or jot down whatever comes to mind. And then we'll be able to put all of that together a little later on during the session. So again, this is to get those thoughts going, to have an opportunity to pause and to think about your your work, but where did it start, right? Where are you now and where are you going and who are you speaking to? And so for each of these sections, you'll be able to read the description, which we've already gone over. So as a reminder, your North Star is your purpose. We'll use this one as an example. And so what do we mean when we say your purpose or your origin story? It's your beliefs, your childhood influences, defining values, cultural heritage, or your founding purpose. And then there are prompts as well. We clearly built this worksheet out, thinking through what would be most helpful as you're going through. It's like, okay, well, I feel a little stuck. Then you have an opportunity to take a look at the prompts. And so we'll use the North prompts as an example. So, what belief or value has guided you since the beginning? When did you first feel called to do this work? Like when did a light bulb go off that, you know what, I really enjoy this, but I also am very passionate about this work. When did that happen? Or another prompt is, what's the story from your early life that reflects who you are today? And so you'll go through each of the building blocks, answer those prompts or one of those prompts to secure your answers. And then from this information, we'll be able to construct your 2 sentence brand story. Okay, so that is the final goal. But to do that, we have to stop and do some reflecting. I will pause so that you can go to the chat and download the worksheet, and then you can ask any questions you may have, and then we'll give you about 5 minutes to go through the worksheet. So that gives you, not a lot of time because I don't want you to overthink it. That's in part what makes this such a powerful tool. If you have a question, you can drop it in the chat or you can raise your hand. If you're not familiar with the hand raising tool, I don't want that to stop you. So you can just unmute and share your question. Okay, great. Corrine, are you comfortable with us starting our 5 minutes?
Yes, I think so. We do have a question in the chat about how to download. I'm not sure if we can show it on your end, because our there's a specific link that Charlotte's Creative sent over, but if y'all just hover towards the bottom, there will be like an arrow with a circle, and it looks like that. If you're still having any issues, just message me separately, and then I can help troubleshoot that during that 5 minute period. So, but yeah, to answer your question, Rita, yes, I think we're good.
Oh, good, good. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rita.
Yeah.
So, we have a question in the chat just as we're doing this 5 minute period of writing where someone wanted to get some clarification on the question, what platforms or styles best reflect your energy? It looks like the word platforms is like throwing them off a little bit. So, I don't know if you could provide some clarification or examples for that.
So this question is more focused on your well, I was going to say your voice, but clearly that's there, so that didn't answer your question, which is fair. It would be your vibe, your creative approach. Is there a or more styles best reflect your energy? This would be like a mood board, basically. So, are there brands or artists or even music that really reflects your voice? So it's more of like inspiration. Great question. I'm happy to answer any additional questions as they come up. We have 1 minute remaining. I'm going to go to the next page in case anyone is having issues with the worksheet. Okay, if you can wrap up your last sentence or two, that would be great. There's a section at the bottom of the second page of the worksheet, and we will come back to that. Just pausing so those that are finishing up, you can finish up. Then also we can use this time. I'm happy to answer any additional questions about any of the sections or any of the prompts. I want to make sure that you get exactly what you need. Okay, if there aren't any at this time, as we work through the next steps within the process, I can answer questions then as well. Okay. So for some people, I know that some of that may have felt really good and refreshing and energizing, but there were also moments in which we asked questions about challenges that you may have experienced or currently are experiencing. So I also want to take a moment to honor that for some people, thinking back to their origin story may be warm and fluffy. And for others, it may not be as warm and fluffy. And so I want to just pause and thank you for showing up for yourself. And I've said this throughout, and I'll keep saying this, that today is not about theory, it's about practice, and we're doing the work collectively. So kudos again. See if it will. Ooh, okay. It's not being kind to me. Let's see if I click down here. No? Okay, one moment. I guess this message is supposed to just stay and resonate with us. I'm like, I have tried everything and it will not go away. Give me one moment, please. I was like frozen. Oh, I said we were going to take a breath, but goodness gracious. You have to be careful what you ask for, right? Let me just close it and open it again. Thank you for your
Yeah,
patience.
totally okay. It gives more people time to continue working on the worksheets. Maybe everyone
Okay.
was kind of manifesting a little bit more time, a little too hard.
Like I am here for that as well. Okay, let's see. Is it better? Okay, it's working now. That's a good thing. Okay, you should be able to see my screen momentarily. It's not going to be beautiful at first. Is there a way? Okay, maybe this will work. So you don't have to see my many windows open. Okay, that worked. Okay. Okay, so we've done the work of revisiting your why and doing some initial work around looking at how you would describe your work and your approach and talking about some of the challenges that you had and who your audience is and who you're looking to connect with. So now that we have that information, we can form your brand story. And so you'll be able to look back at that information and leverage it to write a statement for yourself. And so I'm going to read mine as an example, and then I will pull up the template that you'll be able to leverage. So for me, I create story-driven content and campaigns for communities and brands that want to make a meaningful impact because I believe real change starts with real stories. My story was shaped by growing up between cultures, navigating loss, and learning to lead with both strategy and soul. And I want people to feel seen, inspired, and empowered to tell their own truth. So that is my brand story in 2 sentences. So it gives, again, it's touching on all of those points that we've already discussed. So from your why to some of the challenges that you've experienced to the way that you approach your work, and we end with who your audience is, or how you want those people or that person to feel. This is the template. I'm going to pause here for any questions that you may have about this. One of my team members was like, yeah, yours is 2 sentences, but there are a couple of like comma spices in there. And I was like, I feel like you're hating a little bit because it is long. I found a way to, to get a couple extra words in there. So feel free to do the same. But any questions?
We do have a question. Could you go
Yes.
back to your example really quickly?
Yes.
The slide that shows that.
Yes. So hopefully you can kind of see at very least at a high level how some of the things I've shared with you throughout this throughout our time together thus far, how they come to life in my brand story, right? So we talked about the fact that that I'm really passionate about the work that I do. What kind of work do I do? And so we started with that story-driven content and campaigns. And then who? For communities and brands that want to make a meaningful impact. And then why? Why do I do that? Right. So that's been part of my origin story. I know and believe that real change starts with real stories because of the stories I shared about my dad and my mother and her siblings. And that is really what made the importance and impact of storytelling abundantly clear for me at a very early age. And then my story is shaped by, so I sprinkled in here for me some of the challenges that I've experienced, but also some of the things from my childhood that I saw as a benefit and a challenge in some cases. So that was growing up between cultures. My dad is Ghanaian and my mother is African American, and there are substantial cultural differences. So that definitely shaped who I am. Navigating loss, suffered the loss of my mother, who was my best friend, and learning to lead with both strategy and soul. And sometimes I have worked in environments or with teams where they're really, really focused on the strategy, really focused on data sets and goals. And I've had to remind them of the people behind the dollars. They wanted to add, of course, to their revenue. And I want people to feel in all of the work that I do, but even in my day-to-day interactions with people, I want them to feel seen, inspired, and empowered to tell their own truth. So, Corrine and I, when we met today for the first time, and so an example of that would be, I was like, "How do you pronounce your name?" Like, I think I know, and I was wrong. So I'm happy I asked, right? And so that's important to me, is to make sure that people feel seen. Any additional questions about my brand story and how I pulled in some of the pieces from that North framework to author it? No? Okay.
I do have one question.
Yes.
I was wondering, so in your brand story, you talked a lot about what influenced you to be where you are now and make the creative decisions you're making now, but is there any room in your brand story to like look toward the future and what you're excited to accomplish later in life?
That's a great question. So typically when I am developing my own brand story or working with individuals that are developing their brand story, we're hyper focused on where we are now because oftentimes they don't have a brand story developed. So to lean too far into the future can feel a little overwhelming. In addition to taking that retrospective look back, which again can be a challenge for some people. So then to take them from that to where we are right now tends to be very empowering. And then from there, we build on on the future in different ways, but not necessarily in their brand story. Some of the elements within your brand story will be evergreen and others will shift. So it's important to revisit your brand story. But the core of it, typically the core of who you are, the experiences you've already had, they won't shift. They won't shift. But the goal is to have this, and as you're doing future planning, you can refer back to it. Does that help?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm happy to hear that. And again, I would revisit it because there you may learn more things about your audience, or the way that you want to make people feel. So maybe it's currently you want people to feel joy, but you may say, joy feels a little too playful, and my audience has matured. So what does that look like? Or can your audience still have joy, but how do you make it feel a little elevated, maybe? And so those are some things that you will be able to revisit.
We have another chat question.
Yeah.
Is your brand story the same as an artist statement?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I think so. I feel that sometimes with artist statements, the thing that can be missing is kind of that I'm going to say that retrospective look. So that look back at like the origin of the work, like the why behind it, but the origin of the why, right? So for me, it was my parents and hearing them have these conversations and share stories. And so that made me passionate about storytelling and making sure people feel seen, heard, and respected. And so sometimes I feel as if artist statements start there without looking back a little bit more. It's a good question. It's a really good question.
I had a question. Um,
Yes.
a lot of my work is centered around pleasure and celebrating pleasure in all aspects of our lives. And so I'm curious, how do you handle maybe like the rebuttal of that? Because sometimes I'm met with, well, not everything is supposed to feel good, or there are challenges in life. And I'm like, yes, I know that. I fully acknowledge that. And so then it kind of like derails the conversation. So I'm wondering what your thoughts or like advice would be around something like that.
Great. That's a good question. I I think that it's going to be very important for you to identify and create a safe space if you haven't already for people that are aligned. Because the truth is, they're going to be people that understand what you're saying, they understand your purpose, and they want to lean into it. And then they're going to be people who just aren't open-minded. And so my personal approach and also what I tell our clients is lean into and really focus on your supporters because sometimes the time and energy that it takes trying to sway people into your offering, into your value system, it may not be worth it. Because no matter how much work you do to try to educate them and sway them, oftentimes people have their minds made up, especially about things that may feel like they have an emotional tie. I think that that can be a tad bit more challenging to sway. That's a good question. So I would really identify your primary audience and find ways to reach them.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's a great question. And they'll find you too. They'll find you. So continue to be who you are and your people will find you. As long as you're putting yourself out there and you're being intentional and you're being authentic and you're saying, yes, I know sometimes life is challenging and this is how I manage it. And that we're living in the and. You can have pleasure and sometimes be a little sad, right? And
Yeah.
so that's
I love that
okay.
you said we're living in the and because that is a lot like that's also highly correlated to a lot of the stuff I do. It's like the and the overlap.
Oh wow.
That was really cool that you said that.
Wow, that's awesome. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And yes, in the work that you're doing, it sounds really exciting. It does.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We have another chat question.
Okay.
It says, how do you not come across as too emotional of a person? So their brand is about selling handmade merchandise made by Indian artisans, and they use their brand to tell their stories. But many times they get the feedback that the brand's too emotional.
Hmm. I would like to know a little bit more about the emotions that may be conveyed to the audience? Are the stories about their wins and struggles, or does it focus primarily on like the challenges that they're encountering? Because it could be that what they are identifying as emotional, which I mentioned earlier on, that sometimes emotions, and we talk about emotions from a marketing standpoint, sometimes we don't even use that word. We'll say emotive. Still very much so the same, but there tends to be some negative reactions around emotions. People think sadness or sorrow. They think about the challenging emotions that we have to manage and get through. So my question to you is, are you only sharing stories of the challenges that are being experienced, or are you weaving in some of those joys as well? And if you're not highlighting some of those successes, I would lean into highlighting some of those successes or wins or the stories of the people um, as individuals. So who is this artisan? Do they have a family that they're supporting? What do they do for fun? How do they manage the challenges that they are having? What does that look like? Is there a quote that really gets them through the day or a religious practice that they lean on? So there's a way to still tell those stories, to still be honest, to not over beautify challenges, and to show some of their joyful moments. I hope that helps. And I know that can be a challenge. One of the projects that I and the companies I worked for was Walgreens Corporate, and we had a lot of work around immunization distributions. And we had the same challenge where people were saying, oh goodness, sometimes this feels heavy. How do we make it where or create an environment where people are informed, inspired, and they want to take action or they want to support without leaving them feeling hopeless or helpless or overly sad. So I do understand that that's a challenge.
We also have
Thank
another
you for
chat
the work you're
question.
doing. I was going to say, and thank you
Oh,
for the
sorry.
work that you're doing for those artisans. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so we have another chat question. So they're struggling to stay broad enough to cover their services because they do both commercial and fine art. Is it possible to have two different brand stories?
That's a great question. I'm going to say your brand story is typically consistent because it's who you are, right? And so if you're asking about like your tone may be different depending on those two audiences in your work, maybe with your commission work or non. Did you say corporate work?
It's commercial and fine art photography.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah, those are very different audiences. But your brand story is really what's driving you and the work that you're doing and your ability to communicate with both audiences, which is unique. Not everyone can do that. And so I would figure out a way to even weave that into your brand story. How is your approach different? What makes you able to do that? How is your process different? And I would use all of that information to inform your brand story. So, your and I want people to feel may have a variety of words in it. Use it, have a comma splice, it's fine, but where you're able to speak about both audiences. So one audience may feel very passionate about supporting artists and growing their collection. So you may want to say, I want people to feel um, and make it very clear that they have that this work is value add or whatever it is that resonates most with you. I don't want to speak for you, but thinking about those two audiences, your ability to communicate to both because that's what you're doing, and the fact that that is unique. And so I would really spend some time thinking about those two audiences and what makes them unique and see how that weaves into your brand story. But your story, it's your story. And so looking back at that historical data that you're pulling in, those things won't shift. So it's really about leaning into the fact that you're doing something that a lot of people aren't able to. That's amazing. These are very different spaces. Oh, no, that's not right. Can you see my screen still? Okay, great. Thank you. If there aren't any additional questions, I know we only have less than 10 minutes, but I do want you to take the time because I know sometimes it's challenging to come back and complete things like this. So if you could please gift yourself with just like 3 to 4 minutes to start to fill this out. At the very least, start it. If you don't finish it, that's finish it during the session. I encourage you to finish it tonight. So then it's done if you can. And then you can come back and reference it and build upon it if you would like. So we'll take 3 minutes to do that. Thank you. And as a reminder, it's also on the bottom of the worksheet. It's that last box. But if you don't have the worksheet, please feel free to write this out. One more minute. Great. Would anyone like to share their brand story? You don't have to. If you feel as if you would like to spend some more time working on it, I understand. But we welcome anyone that may want to share theirs to do so.
We also have someone that already sent one in the chat. So if sending it in the chat's also a good way for you
Oh,
to share it,
good. Yes.
feel free to. I love reading these, so please send.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Do you mind reading one of them? If we can
Yeah,
toggle. Okay, thank you.
absolutely. So, Erica shared, I create joyfully infused, imperfect, and low pressure creative spaces for individuals who feel that pressure, criticism, and perfectionism have stolen the joy and pleasure of the creative process because it has been proven that creativity has the ability to improve our mental, physical, and relational well-being, regardless of skill level. My story is shaped by my experience helping hundreds of individuals over a decade in the fields of social work and education, my own recovering perfectionism as an artist, and my journey to make creativity a joyful experience for myself in my creative spaces. I want people to feel safe, seen, and supported as they express authentic and carefree creativity. This is awesome, Erica.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really, yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then we have a hand raised. Christopher, you can go ahead and unmute if you want to share yours as well.
Cool.
Hi,
Sounds good.
Christopher.
Howdy, howdy, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Cool. So I'm putting it in the chat, but I'll read it out loud. I create accessible song sheets that transforms readers into pianists because I believe anyone can learn it at any age. My story is shaped by having the experience of working with a teacher who focused solely on traditional methods, which didn't work for me, and I want people to feel unintimidated by the piano.
Wow. Thank you. I'm like,
Thank you.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Mhm. And as we're listening to the brand stories that have been shared with us thus far, many of us are having a reaction to it, right? And it's like, wow, you're listening to the two people that share their stories with us. It just does something to stop and understand the why behind the work and what they want to do, like what their goal is within the work that they're doing. So I hope that's helpful to hear it, and to hear it and to understand why it resonates so much and why it is so important and can be such a powerful tool for you, at the very least, for you to understand.
Erica also has a follow-up question. So Erica was the one that I read for them. Um, so they're asking, do you have any suggestions on refining it a bit? I think this is also a really good question because my own brand story too tends to be like long. So how do you kind of condense it so that it's more concise?
That's a great question. It took me quite a bit of time to narrow mine down. And you see, I still added quite a few commas because some of the language really is at the core of who I am and why I do what I do. So I created a little space for it. So I encourage you, if you can, to create a little extra space for it. And after you do that and use that for yourself internally, if there are some words that maybe you can remove, that if they feel duplicative or you feel as if external facing, it may not be abundantly clear, then those are the words that I would look at pulling out. I would also look at your brand as a whole and make sure that they are that there's some consistency there for external facing share outs of your brand story, which for some people they use their brand story as their mission or their vision or their origin story. You'll see some companies or individuals using it for that reason. And so you will want to make sure that the language that is in your story is reflected throughout the rest of your work.
All right, we are at 7:01 now.
Oh,
We'll
wow.
wrap up with the two. I know time like goes by so fast.
It does.
We'll wrap up with two more questions. So first one is Heather asking if you provide consultations.
Thank you for asking. I'm flattered by that. And I typically do not. However, I am usually at the at creative Charlotte is creative events. I've been at a couple of networking events that they've had, and I'm always happy to answer questions there. Also, if it's something that is about a 30-minute or so conversation, I'm happy to just meet with you. And so feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or our company's website. And so I'll share that too as well.
Hmm. And then feel free if anyone has to leave already, feel free to go and just continue to work on your brand story. Our last question is it important for the what you do slash offer to be clear within your brand story, or is the brand story more about the why?
Your brand story is more about the why, about the why. And I would say that the part about at the end where we talk about who you're speaking to, who your audience is, that would be that would probably be the furthest that I would push it for your brand story because it's also something for you to go back to. So I have mine currently on a really large screen in my office, and it's my screensaver on my computer so that I remind myself. So as opportunities come in, is this a line? Do you know what I mean? Does this feel good? Is it really what we're focused on? Is it something we're passionate about? And so you can refer back to it as well. I hope that answers your question.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for such a great creative convo. I'm sure this is going to be super helpful. And the worksheet's even incredible because then we can even bring something from this creative convo and continue to work on it. If you have any other last things to share, please do. Yeah, just thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. And thank you all so much for, again, and I know I've said this several times, but for being here, for doing the work, and for asking questions and for sharing your brand stories that clearly have moved me. I was like, I will not cry. I will not cry. So, so there's that. No, but seriously, thank you all very much. And remember that your story, it's yours. You own it. No one else has it. And so leverage it, leverage it. We're all looking for a connection. So feel empowered to do so. And thank you very much. And I hope you have a great night.
All right, thanks everybody. We will have Sethu and Tim and everyone at Charlie's Creative follow up with any things for this. But yeah, have a great night.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you. Thank you so much.